This is Untapped with ME, and I am ME. On this podcast, I do my two favorite things, and they are tell true and crazy stories about me and my life in Nacogdoches, Texas, and drink beer, lovely, delicious beer. Today, I am drinking Stone Tangerine Express. Choo-choo! Get on the Tangerine Express. It is a citrusy beer, so it tastes kind of like a mouthful of tangerine with a back note, y'all, of pineapple. Shall we try it? Let's do. Okay, this is not Sunny Delight, y'all, okay? But it is Pow with citrus. So look for it in the bright orange box. Get you some. Woohoo! Let's get to our story. Lost in the Night, part of our series called Murder and Crime in Nacogdoches, Texas. This is the story of Donald Ellis Davis. This is episode 2, so if you did not hear episode 1, go back so that the rest of the story will really make sense. I said before that this is the saddest story I will tell. It may haunt you as it has haunted me for 40 years. Donald Davis, the popular athlete and friend to all, is walking down the street late at night in Nacogdoches, Texas, in 1983, headed to his parents' house. He meets another man also walking on the street. He is a small and friendly guy about the same age as Donald, who is 28. The stranger is Ricky Lee Wilburn. But that is not who Donald sees, y'all. Suddenly, Donald sees Lucifer. I saw him as the lion that betrayed God. I thought I was Lord Thornton, Jesus, says Donald. He is a victim of his own mind. I am going to tell you the crazy poo-poo of the crime. Turn down the volume because this is not for the kids. All right, just a minute. He beats him. Once he starts, he could not stop. He says he beat him like they beat him when he was at Rusk State Hospital. He kicks him. He jumps up and down on him. He strips all the clothes off of him. He pulls him up by his legs. He tries to pull off his He tries to stick it up his We still PG here, y'all. He thought he was killing Lucifer. He says that he knew when he went to sleep that night, he would wake up in heaven. He has thinking that he has done a good thing until he sees the lights of the police. And he knows something irreversible has happened. He is just blocks from his parents' home. He runs to it. He bangs on the door. No answer. Maybe they are not home. Maybe they are out looking for him. Maybe they are afraid and they are hiding. If they are home, the next thing they hear just then is the sound of breaking glass. It is Donald, all at once, breaking the glass of the front door and letting himself in. He calls his friend Leroy Owens. He says, "Come get me. I've done something terrible." Leroy and his fiancée, Susan Cook, a former classmate, rush up to the house. Donald quickly jumps in the truck. His bare feet are covered in blood. His pants are covered in blood. He says he accidentally stomped a man to death. He says he was trying to exorcise a demon. Leroy and Susan have to make some critical decisions and fast. Where to take him? What to do with him? Susan knew a few things about the law. See, Kenneth Palafox, the subject of our last podcast, ironically, was her brother-in-law. Ken had asked her to give the murder weapon in his story to his attorney, who hid it, and that nearly got Susan into some big trouble. So she loves Donald Ellis Davis, but they want to do the right thing here. So they call a mental health hotline. Their first goal is to get their friend some help. And then they call the police. 40 years later, Susan is consumed by guilt for that call. She wishes she had called his parents instead, but would that have changed anything? No. Donald Ellis Davis is fated to the legal system. And that is never good, y'all. The next time Susan sees her friend, she is waiting for him for his arraignment outside of the courtroom. See, she works in the courthouse, so she can wait for Donald outside those big, heavy doors to the courtroom. She can wait there until he arrives. And then suddenly, there he is, with several police officers flanked on either side. His face is badly bruised. He has a black eye. Susan is devastated, y'all. He needed help, and now he is hurt. She calls out, "Who did that to you, Donald?" He motions to the officers who constrain him. They did. They say that Donald was banging his own head against a wall in the jail cell. Whatever is happening, everyone who loves Donald is now powerless to help him. Except for Tom P. Simpf, attorney at law. He was the man, y'all. Judge Pierce appoints Tom P. Simpf to the defense for Donald Ellis Davis. He is a graduate of Duke University and Harvard Law School. Why is he in Nacogdoches? Well, he fell in love with a small-town beauty queen from a prominent local family. Judge Pierce appoints Tom P. Simpf as defense counsel for the absolutely most difficult cases. That would include Donald Davis and Kenneth Palafox, the subject of our last murder story, and Willie Foster Sellers, a bank robber on the FBI's most wanted list who just happened to rob a bank in Nacogdoches County. That is our next story. I asked Jerry Poole, the court reporter, why Judge Pierce kept appointing Tom P. Simpf to all these very tough, very public cases. Jerry said, they were all wild cards. Who knew how these defendants might behave in the courtroom? And Judge Pierce would not tolerate anything that compromised the decorum of his court. Simpf is brilliant. He is a Kentucky Southern gentleman. He will keep Donald Davis under control. Although that is going to be a tall order when this once magnificent boy is so very lost now in the night of his mind. On September 8th, just 2 days after the murder, a grand jury indicts Donald Ellis Davis for murder by stomping of the feet. Next, the court sends Donald to Rusk State Hospital to examine Donald as part of the pre-trial protocol. They determine that he suffers from manic bipolar disorder, frequent and severe. On September 14th, 1983, Donald Davis appears before Judge Jack Pierce of the Nacogdoches 145th District Court for a hearing regarding a competency trial. See, they cannot try Donald Davis for murder if he is found to be incompetent. This hearing, is to talk about all of that. Judge Pierce has a reputation as tough, uncompromising, stern. But he also laments the anguish of parents like Ed Davis. He also recognizes that life is unfair and some people are at a deficit that is no fault of their own. See, his sister was mentally unwell. He always said, "Hon, she just isn't as lucky as the rest of us." He expected us to fill the deficit as much as we could for her. So I know he understands that Donald was gripped by fears that he could not control. I know all this because Judge Jack Pierce was my daddy, y'all. Above all, Jack Pierce had a deep conviction that the law had to be followed. And sometimes that might mean sending people away. And so, Donald Davis meets Judge Jack Pierce. It is just 7 days since the murder. I'm going to read that transcript to you. Donald: "I'm not incompetent, Judge." Judge Pierce: "Yes." Donald: "I would like to go to jail before I go back to that hospital." Judge Pierce: "Yes, Mr. Davis, you must not say those kinds of things here in open court. You cannot use profanity, and if you wish to conference with your attorney, the court will permit you to do so, sir." Hint, hint. Take a beat, son. Slow down. Don't make things worse. Donald: "I want to conference with him then, sir." Judge Pierce: "You may do so, but you must not use any profanity or speak out." Donald: "Yes, sir. I'm sorry." The polite boy is still present in there somewhere. Simph, Donald's attorney: "We'll confer before he's taken back, Your Honor." Judge Pierce: "Yes, I'll let you conference with him for a minute now." Simph, get the hint. The man needs counsel right now so he will stop talking. Donald: "Before you take me back where?" He's panicked. He can't bear to think of returning to the place where he claims he was beat. Judge Pierce: "Just a moment, please, now, Mr. Davis." Donald: "This is a fine man right here, and that's a fine man there, and Mr. John Lightfoot," Nacogdoches sheriff. "John Lightfoot is a fine man because they helped my dad. They helped my dad when he needed to commit me. They helped him right then and there, by God Almighty, Lord God Almighty. Let me tell you something. I am not an animal. I'm not an animal. I don't like to be treated like one, touched like one, pushed, shoved, kicked, beaten. See these teeth? See these teeth kicked in? That's what's back over there. I'd rather go to prison. I'd rather go to prison where at least it's peaceful in a cell over there, where there's no people jumping and beating on you. You know what I'm saying?" I'm really surprised Daddy let him go on like that. Normally he would be rapping the gavel and saying, "Bailiff, please remove the defendant from the courtroom," but he is listening. Judge Pierce: "Mr. Davis." Donald: "You know what I'm saying?" Judge Pierce: "The court hears what you're saying." Donald: I don't want a partial hearing. I want a hearing now. I want justice now. I want to be convicted of murder because I killed Ricky Lee Wilburn. I know I did. I killed him. I jumped up and down on him, stomped him, pulled on his tried to stick it up his I was sick then. But I'm not sick now that I know that I did it, right? Well, convict my ass. Convict it right now. Judge Pierce.
Mr. Davis.
Bailiff moves in to restrain Donald a bit. Donald, get your hands off me. Judge Pierce.
Mr. Davis, the court must proceed with the trial of this case now, and the court wants you to be present, and the court has listened to you.
Donald, are you going to take me back to that hospital over there?
Judge Pierce. Just a moment, please.
Donald, I hate the hospital worse than prison. You understand? Judge Pierce.
Mr. Davis.
Donald, I take prison. Judge Pierce.
Mr. Davis, you have made the statement.
Donald. What do you want me to do? You want me to die? I'm trying to die, Emmett. Judge Pierce.
You must not use profanity.
Donald. I'd like to die. Judge Pierce.
In the court, or else you cannot be present for proceedings.
Donald. Well, I don't want to be present. In fact, I'd like to smoke a cigarette, as a matter of fact. Judge Pierce.
Well, you'll have an opportunity.
Donald. Well, you do your thing. Judge Pierce. Donald. Just do your thing. I'm gone. Judge Pierce.
In a few minutes. Mr. Davis, you cannot leave the courtroom at this time.
Donald. Emmett.
Judge Pierce. You must be seated.
Donald. Patsy court, kangaroo court, all it is. I'd like to smoke a cigarette. Judge Pierce.
Smoking is not permitted in the courtroom, Mr. Davis.
Donald. You want to put me away for good, don't you? Fine. Judge Pierce.
Mr. Davis, the court is going to be speaking with the court now, and you must control yourself. You must be quiet.
Donald. I'm under control, Judge. Perfect control. Judge Pierce.
I realize that.
Donald. I know you as you are. And you know me as I am. There is a whole lot of truth, y'all, to that last statement. I know you as you are, and you know me as I am. Donald knows Judge Pierce is not going to tolerate any foolishness. Judge Pierce knows that Donald Ellis Davis is broken. Oh, wow. Tough to get through that. But we want this story to share some things with you that might help you to better understand all facets. Next time, I will tell you about the murder trial of Donald Davis. There is a big surprise. So, subscribe and follow and tap into Untapped with ME.